Sarah Chen floated in the command center of Haven's Rest, staring at the holographic display that showed Earth as it was 50 years ago. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, beautiful. Alive. Gone. Now Earth was a ball of melted glass and radioactive dust. The Kethvar had made sure nothing would ever grow there again. They had done the same to every human colony they could find. Mars, Europa Station, New Shanghai. All of them burned until there was nothing left but memories and ash. Admiral called Lieutenant Torres from his station. The morning reports are ready. Sarah turned away from the Earth display. The command center of Haven's Rest was carved deep inside an asteroid in a forgotten corner of space. No one knew they were here. That was the point. For 50 years, humanity had hidden while they prepared, while they planned, while they built weapons that would make the Kethvar wish they had finished the job. Population count? Sarah asked. 11,800,047, Torres replied. Down by 12 from last month. Every death hurt. There were so few humans left. Each life was precious. But Sarah knew that soon, the Kethvar would understand what it meant to lose everything they loved. She walked through the corridors of Haven's Rest. The walls were metal and stone, cold and practical. Children ran past her, laughing as they played. They had been born here in this hidden place. They had never seen a real sun or breathed air that wasn't recycled. But they were alive, and that was what mattered. In the engineering sections, the best minds humanity had left worked on projects that would have seemed impossible before the genocide. Dr. Kim was perfecting quantum stealth drives that could make ships invisible to any scanner. Professor Zhang was building weapons that could tear holes in space itself. Commander Rodriguez was training pilots to use technology that bent the rules of physics. "Ma'am," said a young engineer as Sarah passed, "the new prototype is ready for testing." Sarah nodded. She had seen the plans. A ship that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Silent. Deadly. Perfect for what they needed to do. In the memorial hall, the walls were covered with names, billions of them. Every human who had died in the genocide. Men, women, children, babies. All murdered by the Kethvar because they thought humans were too dangerous to live alongside other species. They had been right about one thing. Humans were dangerous, but they had made one terrible mistake. They hadn't killed them all. Sarah stopped at one section of the wall. Her family's names were there. Her parents, her brother, her daughter who had been only 6 years old. She touched the wall where her daughter's name was carved. "I'm sorry it took so long," she whispered. "But we're almost ready." Captain Webb found her there an hour later. He was one of her best officers, a man who had lost everything just like everyone else. He had spent 50 years learning how to kill Kethvar in the most efficient ways possible. "The council meeting is about to start," he said softly. The War Council met in a room deep in the heart of Haven's Rest. 12 people who led what remained of humanity. They had different backgrounds, different ideas about many things. But they all agreed on one thing. The Kethvar had to pay. "Intelligence reports confirm that Kethvar military strength is at an all-time high," said General Park. "They control 47 systems now. Their fleets patrol the major trade routes. They think they're safe." "Good," said Admiral Chen. "Let them feel safe. It will make this more satisfying." Dr. Vasquez, the chief scientist, activated a holographic display. It showed detailed biological data about the Kethvar species, every weakness, every vulnerability. 50 years of study had taught them exactly how to hurt their enemies. "The bioweapons are ready," she said. "We can target specific genetic markers. Only Kethvar will die. Other species will be completely unaffected." "How long?" asked Sarah. "Once we deploy them, the entire Kethvar population will be gone within 6 months. But Admiral, once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be committing genocide just like they did to us." Sarah looked around the room. She saw the faces of people who had lost everything. Parents who had watched their children burn, children who had seen their parents murdered, brothers and sisters who were now alone in the universe. They started this war when they decided we didn't deserve to exist, Sarah said. We're going to finish it the same way. The only difference is we're going to be more thorough than they were. The room was quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. They were about to become the very thing they hated. But the alternative was to let the Kethvar live while billions of humans remained dead. There's something else, said Captain Webb. Our spy networks have been monitoring Galactic Council communications. They're planning to expand Kethvar territory, give them more systems, more resources. The galaxy is rewarding them for what they did to us. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. Not only had the galaxy allowed the genocide to happen, they were helping the murderers get stronger. Then we'll remind the galaxy why they should have stopped this 50 years ago, she said. That night, Sarah stood in her private quarters looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Kethvar families were sleeping peacefully. Children were playing. Parents were planning for the future. They had no idea that death was coming for them. She thought about her own daughter. What would she think of what her mother had become? Would she understand that some things were worth becoming a monster for? A message came through on her personal communicator. It was from Torres in the command center. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from one of our deep space scouts. They've found something you need to see. Sarah made her way back to the command center. On the main screen was a recording from the scout ship. It showed a Kethvar research facility on a remote moon. But this wasn't a normal facility. The architecture was wrong, too organic, too familiar. What am I looking at? Sarah asked. It appears to be a facility for biological research, Torres said. But Admiral, look at these readings. The scanner data appeared on screen. Sarah studied it for a moment, then felt her blood turn to ice. They're using human genetic material, she said. Yes, ma'am. But not just studying it. They're trying to recreate it. To make something new. Sarah understood. The genocide hadn't been about fear or hatred. It had been about harvesting. The Kethvar had killed billions of humans not to eliminate them, but to steal their genetic code. They wanted to create a slave species with human intelligence but without human independence. They had murdered her entire species for parts. Change of plans, Sarah said, her voice deadly calm. We're not just going to kill them. We're going to make them suffer first. Send orders to all fleet commanders. Operation Ghost Ship begins immediately. Ma'am, are you sure? We're not fully prepared for... We've been preparing for 50 years, Sarah cut him off. It's time for the galaxy to remember that humanity is still here, and we're very, very angry. Outside Haven's Rest, the first ships began to move. Silent shadows in the darkness, heading toward Kethvar space. The hunt was about to begin. Commander Vexhai was enjoying his morning meal when the alarms started screaming. The Kethvar military base on Korvek Prime was supposed to be one of the most secure installations in their territory. Powerful shields, automated defense systems, and a full patrol fleet in orbit. Nothing should have been able to get close without being detected hours in advance. Report, Vexhai barked as he rushed onto the command bridge. Sir, we're detecting massive explosions throughout the base, but we can't find the source. Our sensors show nothing. Vexhai looked at the tactical display. 3 ammunition depots had already been destroyed. The main reactor was showing critical damage warnings. Ships in the orbital dock were exploding one by one, yet their scanners showed empty space. Impossible. Nothing can hide from our sensors. Sir, incoming transmission. Source unknown. Put it through. The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of a ship unlike anything Vexhai had ever seen. The walls were dark metal, lit by blue lights. At the center stood a human woman in a black uniform. Her eyes were cold as winter stars. My name is Captain Elena Reyes, she said. 50 years ago, you murdered my family on New Beijing. Today, I'm returning the favor. The transmission cut off. A second later, the command center exploded around Vexhai. 3 systems away, Captain Marcus Webb watched from the bridge of his ship as another Kethvar installation died in silence. The Ghost Ship program was working perfectly. Human vessels could appear anywhere without warning, strike with devastating force, then vanish before the enemy could respond. Excellent work, he told his crew. Set course for the next target. His ship, the Vengeance, was a masterpiece of human engineering. The quantum stealth drive made it completely invisible to any known sensor technology. The reality fracture weapons could destroy targets by making them simply stop existing. Most importantly, the ship's AI could learn and adapt in real time, becoming more deadly with each battle. "Sir," called Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "I'm picking up Kethvar patrol ships heading our way. Looks like they're trying to surround us." Webb smiled. "Let them come. Ghost protocol activated. All hands, prepare for silent running." The Vengeance disappeared from all sensors, becoming one with the darkness of space. The Kethvar ships passed right through where it had been, their scanners finding nothing but empty void. "Fire when ready," Webb ordered. The first Kethvar ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment there was nothing but scattered atoms. The second ship managed to send a distress signal before it too was erased from reality. The third ship tried to run, but the Vengeance could move faster than anything the Kethvar had built. Within minutes, the entire patrol was gone. No wreckage, no survivors, just empty space where 12 ships had been. On Haven's Rest, Admiral Chen monitored the reports coming in from across Kethvar territory. Ghost ships were striking everywhere at once. Military bases, research facilities, supply depots, communication relays. Each strike was surgical, precise, and completely devastating. "Ma'am," said Torres, "we're intercepting Kethvar military communications. They're in complete panic. They're calling these attacks acts of terrorism." "Terrorism?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "They kill 11 billion humans and call it military strategy. We kill a few thousand of them and suddenly we're terrorists." Interesting perspective. The holographic display showed the progress of Operation Ghost Ship. Red dots appeared across Kethvar space as each target was eliminated. The enemy was learning that nowhere was safe. No defense was strong enough, no hiding place was secret enough. "Admiral," called Dr. Vasquez from her station, "I'm getting reports from our infiltration teams, the biological research facilities. We found. There are more of them. Dozens more." Sarah felt her anger grow cold and sharp. "What have you found?" "They're not just trying to recreate human genetics. They're trying to improve them. Make humans that are stronger, faster, smarter, but completely loyal to Kethvar commands. They're building a slave army." The command center went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The genocide hadn't been about eliminating a threat. It had been about stealing humanity's greatest strength and turning it into a weapon for their enemies. "How close are they to success?" Sarah asked. "Based on the data we've recovered, they have working prototypes. Human Kethvar hybrids with enhanced physical capabilities but no free will. They're planning to mass-produce them within the year." Sarah stood up slowly. When she spoke, her voice was deadly quiet. "Send new orders to all Ghost Ship commanders. Priority targets are now all biological research facilities. Kill everyone. Inside. Destroy everything. Leave nothing that can be salvaged." 3 days later, Captain Webb's team infiltrated the main research station orbiting Vexcon. The facility was massive, protected by the best security the Kethvar could provide. It didn't matter. Human technology was 50 years ahead of anything their enemies could imagine. Webb and his commandos moved through the station like shadows. Their stealth suits made them invisible to cameras and sensors. Their weapons killed silently, leaving no trace. Within an hour, they had secured the Central Research Laboratory. What they found there made Webb sick. Tanks filled with growing tissue, human tissue, but changed, modified, improved according to Kethvar ideas of perfection. In one tank, something that had once been human floated in artificial fluid. It had human intelligence in its eyes, but those eyes were filled with mindless obedience. "My God," whispered Sergeant Kim. "What have they done?" Webb activated his communicator. "Admiral, we've found them. The prototypes. They're people, ma'am. Real people. But they've been turned into something else." Sarah's voice came through the comm, tight with controlled rage. "Can they be saved?" Webb looked at the tanks again. The things inside were breathing, thinking, aware. But they weren't human anymore. They were tools, weapons, slaves. No, ma'am, I don't think they can be. Then put them out of their misery, and make sure this never happens again. Webb and his team spent the next hour destroying everything they could find. Research data, prototype organisms, genetic samples, equipment. When they were finished, they set charges throughout the facility. As they prepared to leave, one of the prototype creatures in the tanks opened its eyes and looked directly at Webb. For a moment, he saw something human there, something that understood what was happening, something that was grateful. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. Back in HFY space, panic was spreading. Military commanders were pulling their fleets back to defend core worlds. Trade routes were being abandoned. Colonies were being evacuated. The ghost ships were everywhere, striking without warning, killing without mercy. Fleet Admiral Thexmar stood in the command center of the HFY flagship, studying reports of the attacks. His military analyst had been trying to find patterns, weaknesses, anything that could help them fight back. "What do we know?" he asked his intelligence chief. "The ships appear to use some form of advanced stealth technology. They can remain completely hidden until they attack. Their weapons are unlike anything in our database. And, sir, they're definitely human." "Impossible. We eliminated the humans 50 years ago. Apparently not all of them. Sir, I've been analyzing the attack patterns. This isn't random terrorism. This is a coordinated military campaign. Someone has been planning this for decades." Thexmar felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How many ships are we facing?" "Unknown, sir. They could have dozens or thousands. We simply can't track them when they don't want to be found." That night, Thexmar couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the human woman who had appeared on screens across HFY space, Captain Elena Reyes. She had looked at him with eyes that promised death. He had been there 50 years ago when the decision was made to eliminate humanity. He had voted for it. They all had. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too creative. They would have upset the balance of galactic power. Now he was learning that they had been right about humans being dangerous. They had just been wrong about being able to kill them all. The communicator on his desk chimed. A message was coming through on all channels simultaneously. Emergency priority. The screen showed the same human woman from before, Captain Reyes, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of other humans, all wearing the same black uniforms, all with the same cold promise of death in their eyes. "People of the HFY Confederation," she said. "You thought you had eliminated humanity 50 years ago. You were wrong. We have been waiting. We have been preparing. We have been growing stronger while you celebrated our deaths." The image changed to show recordings from the recent attacks. HFY ships exploding. Military bases burning. Research facilities destroyed. "This is just the beginning," Reyes continued. "You took everything from us. Our homes, our families, our future. Now we're going to take everything from you. Your ships, your stations, your worlds, your lives." The transmission ended with a simple message that appeared in every HFY language. "We are humanity. We are vengeance. We are coming." Ambassador Zeftai of the Velkari Union had seen many conflicts during her long career, but nothing like this. The reports coming from HFY space were horrifying. Entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Military installations being destroyed by invisible attackers. Panic spreading through one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "Surely this is just another territorial dispute," she told her aide as they traveled toward the emergency session of the Galactic Council. "Perhaps a neighbor trying to expand their borders." Her aide, a young diplomat named Korovan, shook his head. "Ma'am, the intelligence report suggests something far worse. The attackers appear to be human." Zeftai laughed. "Impossible. The humans were eliminated decades ago. The HFY made sure of that." "That's what we thought. But the evidence is mounting. These ghost ships use technology we've never seen before. and the few survivors describe seeing humans on the bridge transmissions. The council chambers were in chaos when they arrived. Representatives from dozens of species were arguing loudly. Some demanded immediate intervention to stop the attacks. Others insisted this was an internal Kethvar matter. A few suggested that perhaps the Kethvar deserved what was happening to them. Chancellor Mordek called for order. "We are here to address the crisis in Kethvar space. Fleet Admiral Thexmar will present his report." The Kethvar military leader looked haggard. His once proud bearing was gone, replaced by the desperate posture of someone who had seen his world crumble around him. "Honored Council," he began, "we face an enemy unlike any we have encountered. They strike without warning from ships that cannot be detected. Their weapons can destroy our most powerful vessels with a single shot. In 3 weeks, they have crippled our military capacity by 60%. "What do they want?" asked Representative Havtek from the Grian Republic. "They want us dead. All of us. This isn't about territory or resources. They have stated clearly that their goal is the complete extinction of the Kethvar species." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Genocide was rare in the galaxy. Most conflicts were about trade routes or mining rights. The complete destruction of an entire species hadn't happened in over 1,000 years. "And you're certain these attackers are human?" Zeftai asked. "Yes. They have identified themselves in multiple transmissions. They claim to be survivors of our military action 50 years ago." Military action. Zeftai noted how he avoided saying genocide. The Kethvar had never officially admitted to deliberately exterminating humanity. The official record stated that human colonies had been destroyed during a preemptive military operation to prevent future conflicts. "If these are indeed human survivors," said Chancellor Mordek, "then we must attempt diplomatic contact. The Council has protocols for resolving such conflicts." That was when the lights went out. Emergency power flickered on a moment later, bathing the chamber in red light. Alarms were screaming throughout the station. Security forces were shouting orders, and on every screen in the chamber, the same image appeared. A human woman in a black uniform stood on what appeared to be a ship's bridge. Behind her, stars wheeled slowly past viewports. She looked directly at the camera with eyes that seemed to see into each person's soul. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of the Human Remnant Fleet. You are meeting to discuss what you call the Kethvar crisis. Allow me to clarify the situation." The image changed to show a holographic display of the galaxy. Human ships appeared as red dots throughout. Kethvar space, there were hundreds of them. 50 years ago, the Kethvar Confederation committed genocide against humanity. 11 billion people died. Men, women, children, infants, all murdered because you decided we were too dangerous to live. The display changed again, showing recordings of the attacks. Planets burning, cities melting, refugee ships being destroyed as they tried to escape. "You watched this happen," Admiral Chen continued, her gaze seeming to focus on each council member individually. "You knew what was being done. Some of you even voted to allow it. All of you chose to do nothing." Zeftai felt a chill run through her body. She remembered the vote 50 years ago. The Kethvar had presented evidence that humanity was planning to dominate the galaxy. Most council members had agreed that preemptive action was necessary. Now you meet to discuss how to stop us from taking our revenge. You want to negotiate. You want to find a peaceful solution. You want us to be reasonable. The Admiral's expression hardened. "We tried being reasonable 50 years ago. We tried diplomacy. We tried following your laws and your protocols, and you let them murder us anyway." The display showed more recent images now. Kethvar ships exploding, military bases burning, research facilities being destroyed. "We have spent 50 years preparing for this moment, learning, growing stronger, building weapons you cannot imagine. We are no longer the weak species you thought you eliminated." Suddenly the view changed. Instead of the Admiral's ship, they were looking at the Council station itself. But from outside, from space. A massive human ship hung in the void near the station. It was like nothing any of them had ever seen. Sleek, predatory, beautiful in its deadliness. And it was close enough to destroy the entire station with a single shot. To demonstrate our capabilities, Admiral Chen said, "Observe." The ship fired a single beam at the nearby moon of Corlex. The beam lasted only a moment. When it ended, the moon was gone. Not destroyed, not broken apart. Simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. The council chamber was silent except for the sound of terrified breathing. "We did not come here to negotiate," the Admiral continued. "We came here to deliver a message. The Kethvar will be extinct within 6 months. Any species that interferes with our operations will join them. Any species that harbors Kethvar refugees will be considered an enemy of humanity." Representative Havadek found his voice. "Admiral Chen, surely we can reach some accommodation. The actions of the Kethvar 50 years ago were regrettable, but genocide in response will not." "Regrettable?" The Admiral's voice turned ice cold. 11 billion murdered people are regrettable? The extinction of our entire civilization is regrettable? The image changed one final time. It showed a recording from Haven's Rest. The memorial hall with its walls covered in names. Billions of names. All the humans who had died. Every name on these walls was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. They had dreams, hopes, plans for the future. All of that was taken from them because you decided they didn't deserve to exist. Admiral Chen appeared on screen again. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "We are not asking for your permission. We are not seeking your approval. We are informing you of what will happen. The Kethvar committed genocide against humanity. Now humanity will commit genocide against the Kethvar. The only difference is that we will be more thorough." The transmission ended. Normal lighting returned to the chamber, but the mood had changed forever. Chancellor Mordek was the first to speak. "We must evacuate all non-essential personnel from Council space immediately, and send emergency messages to all member species. Humanity has declared war on the galaxy." "Not on the galaxy," Zeftai said quietly. "On anyone who gets between them and their revenge." Fleet Admiral Thexmar laughed bitterly. "You still don't understand. This isn't about revenge anymore. Look at what they just did. They made a moon disappear. They infiltrated the most secure facility in the galaxy. They've been watching us, learning about us, preparing to fight us for 50 years. He stood up, his shoulders sagging with defeat. "They're not trying to get revenge for what we did to them. They're trying to make sure it never happens to anyone else. They're establishing themselves as the galaxy's apex predator, and they're using us as the example." That night, emergency meetings were held across the galaxy. Species leaders huddled in secure bunkers, trying to decide how to respond to humanity's ultimatum. Some suggested forming a grand alliance to fight the human threat. Others proposed surrendering immediately and hoping for mercy. But deep in her private quarters, Ambassador Zeftai was reading classified files from 50 years ago, reports about human capabilities, assessments of their technological potential, warnings about what might happen if they were ever pushed to extremes. One report, written by a Kethvar intelligence analyst, stood out. Humans possess several dangerous characteristics: extreme adaptability, innovative problem-solving, and an unusual capacity for both cooperation and violence. Of particular concern is their tendency to become exponentially more dangerous when threatened with extinction. Recommendation: if military action against humanity becomes necessary, ensure complete elimination of the species. Any survivors will pose an existential threat to galactic stability. Zeftai closed the file and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were hunting Kethvar vessels with perfect efficiency. In a few months, an entire species would be extinct, and the galaxy would learn that there were some mistakes that could never be undone. The humans had tried being civilized. They had tried following the rules. They had tried being reasonable. Now they were going to try being terrifying instead. General Vexkoth had not slept properly in weeks. Once he had been the supreme military commander of the Kethvar Confederation. He had led the fleets that destroyed humanity 50 years ago. He had been proud of that accomplishment, convinced that he had saved the galaxy from a dangerous threat. Now he was hiding in a bunker deep beneath the surface of a dead moon, listening to reports of his people dying across the galaxy. "Sir," said his aide, Captain Morthek, "the latest casualty reports." Vexkoth took the datapad with shaking hands. 70% of the Kethvar military was gone. 18 colonies had been evacuated. The home worlds were under constant attack by invisible enemies who struck without warning. What about the civilian evacuations? That's where it gets worse, sir. Vexkoth looked up from the reports. Worse how? The humans aren't just targeting our military installations anymore. They're hunting down every Kethvar in the galaxy. They have teams on every world where our people sought refuge. They're killing civilians, sir, families, children. The general felt sick. Show me. The main screen activated, displaying recordings from across the galaxy. On Velkari Prime, Kethvar refugees in a camp woke up to find their guards dead and unknown figures moving through the darkness. By morning, every Kethvar in the camp was gone. No bodies were found. No witnesses survived. On Heptarch Station, a group of Kethvar business people were meeting in a secure conference room. Security footage showed them discussing trade agreements. One moment, then the lights went out. When emergency power restored illumination, the room was empty except for strange burn marks on the walls. On a passenger transport heading for the Galactic Rim, 3 Kethvar families were traveling under assumed identities. The ship arrived at its destination on schedule, but when it docked, only the non-Kethvar passengers were still aboard. The crew had no memory of any Kethvar passengers ever being on the ship. How are they doing this? Vexkoth asked. We don't know, sir. They seem to have infiltrated every major population center in the galaxy. They know where every Kethvar is hiding. They can reach anyone, anywhere. Vexkoth studied the reports more carefully. The pattern was becoming clear. The humans weren't just killing Kethvar randomly. They were being surgical about it, precise. They eliminated their targets without harming anyone else, often without anyone even noticing until it was too late. Sir, said another aide, there's something else. We've been monitoring human communications. They're calling this the final hunt. It's not just about killing us. They want us to understand what it feels like to be helpless, to know that death is coming and there's nothing we can do to stop it. That was when Vexkoth realized the terrible truth. The humans weren't just committing genocide. They were doing it slowly, methodically, making sure every Kethvar alive understood exactly what was happening and why. How long? He asked. The current rate, sir. The entire Kethvar population will be extinct within 3 months. Vexkoth walked to the small window that looked out over the lunar surface. Somewhere among those stars, human ships were hunting his people. Ships commanded by survivors of the genocide he had ordered 50 years ago. Sir? Called Captain Morthek. What are your orders? Orders. As if there was anything left to order. As if there was any strategy that could save them from what was coming. Gather every military asset we have left, Vexkoth said finally. We're going to make one final stand. 3 days later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the last Kethvar fleet assembled in the Korvek system. They had gathered everything they had left. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, fighters, nearly 1,000 ships arranged in perfect battle formation. It was impressive. 50 years ago, such a fleet would have been unstoppable. Today, it was about to become a memorial. Admiral, said Captain Webb from his position at the tactical station, all ghost ships are in position. We have them completely surrounded. Sarah nodded. The Kethvar couldn't see the human ships. To their sensors, space appeared empty. They were surrounded by death and didn't even know it. Open a channel to the Kethvar flagship. The main screen showed the bridge of a massive Kethvar dreadnought. At its center stood an elderly Kethvar in a worn military uniform. Sarah recognized him from the files. General Vexkoth, the architect of humanity's destruction. General, Sarah said, her voice perfectly calm. I know who you are. Vexkoth straightened his shoulders, trying to project strength he no longer felt. Admiral Chen, I wondered when we would finally meet. You were there 50 years ago. You gave the orders that murdered my species. Yes, I did. Vexkoth's voice was steady. I believed it was necessary. I was convinced that humanity posed a threat to galactic stability. And now? Vexkoth looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Young Kethvar, who had never known a world without the threat of human vengeance hanging over them. Now I understand that we created the very threat we were trying to prevent. Sarah studied the old general's face. She saw no defiance there, no anger, just tired acceptance of what was about to happen. Your people are extinct, General. This fleet represents the last military force you have. In about 10 minutes it will be gone. After that, our hunter teams will spend the next few weeks eliminating the few thousand Kethvar still hiding throughout the galaxy. I know. Do you have anything to say? Any final words for your species? Vexkoth was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. I want you to know that I understand why you're doing this. 50 years ago, we made a choice. We decided that your people were too dangerous to exist alongside us. We were wrong, but not in the way I thought we were. He paused, looking directly at Sarah through the screen. We weren't wrong about humans being dangerous. We were wrong in thinking we could eliminate that danger by killing you. All we did was teach you to. Perfect it. Sarah felt something shift inside her. This wasn't what she had expected. She had thought he would rage, or plead, or try to bargain for his people's lives. You're not going to ask for mercy? Would you grant it if I did? No. Then why would I ask? You're going to kill us all because we killed you all. It's symmetry, justice, the universe balancing itself. Vexkoth straightened his uniform one final time. But Admiral, I want you to remember something. When this is over, you'll be the most feared species in the galaxy. Every other civilization will look at you and see what you did to us. They'll know that if they ever cross humanity, you'll hunt them down and destroy them completely. Sarah said nothing. That fear will keep the peace for a while, Vexkoth continued. But eventually someone will decide that you're too dangerous to exist. They'll form alliances. They'll develop new weapons. They'll try to do to you what you're doing to us. The old general smiled sadly. And when that happens, you'll understand exactly how we felt 50 years ago. You'll be faced with the same choice we were. Fight or be destroyed. And if you choose to fight... He let the implication hang in the air. Sarah felt a chill run through her. She had never considered what would happen after the Kethvar were gone. What would humanity do then? How would the galaxy react to having such a powerful, ruthless species among them? The cycle will continue, Vexkoth said. Someone will always be too dangerous to live. Someone will always have to be eliminated for the greater good. We started this cycle 50 years ago. You're going to complete it today. But it won't end with us. The transmission fell silent. On the tactical display, Sarah could see the Kethvar fleet maintaining formation. They weren't trying to run. They weren't launching a desperate attack. They were simply waiting to die. Admiral? Captain Webb asked quietly. Your orders? Sarah looked at the display for a long moment. 1,000 ships. Tens of thousands of lives. The last remnant of the species that had destroyed her world. She thought about her daughter, about her parents, about the 11 billion humans who had died screaming while the galaxy watched and did nothing. All ships, she said, her voice carrying across the human fleet. Open fire. The Kethvar fleet died in silence. One moment they were there, proud and defiant even in defeat. The next moment they were scattered atoms drifting through empty space. General Vexkoth's last words echoed in Sarah's mind as she watched the debris field expand. The cycle will continue. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had its revenge, and the galaxy would never forget the price of threatening human survival. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 species sat in perfect silence, waiting for the human delegation to arrive. It had been 6 months since the last Kethvar died, hunted down on a remote asteroid, mining station by human operatives who had tracked him across half the galaxy. The Kethvar Confederation no longer existed. An entire species had been wiped from the universe as thoroughly as if they had never been born. And now humanity was coming to discuss the future. Ambassador Zeftai watched the main entrance with growing anxiety. After 6 months of silence, Admiral Chen had finally agreed to meet with the Council. But her message had been clear: this was not a negotiation. This was humanity informing the galaxy of the new rules. The doors opened, and Admiral Sarah Chen entered the chamber. She looked exactly the same as she had in her transmissions. Black uniform, cold eyes, the bearing of someone who had seen the worst the universe could offer and decided to become worse than it. Behind her walked 12 other humans, all wearing the same uniform, all carrying themselves like predators who had just finished a successful hunt. The Admiral walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. She did not bow. She did not offer greetings. She simply stood there, letting the silence stretch until every being in the room understood exactly who was in control. 6 months ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The last Kethvar died. The species that committed genocide against humanity has been completely eliminated. Our revenge is complete. She paused, letting that sink in. You asked for this meeting because you want to know what happens next. You want to understand humanity's intentions. You want to know if you're safe. Admiral Chen's gaze moved slowly around the room, making eye contact with each representative. The answer to that question depends entirely on you. Chancellor Mordek cleared his throat nervously. Admiral Chen, the Council wishes to express our regret over the events of 50 years ago. Perhaps now we can work together to establish peaceful relationships between humanity and the galactic community. Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Peaceful relationships. Like the peaceful relationship you had with humanity before. The genocide? The one where you watched us die and did nothing? The Chancellor shifted uncomfortably. Those were different times. Different circumstances. Yes, they were. In those times, humanity was weak. We followed your laws. We trusted your promises. We believed that civilization and diplomacy could protect us. Sarah walked closer to the Chancellor's seat. We were wrong. The only thing that protects any species in this galaxy is the ability to destroy anyone who threatens them. The Kethvar learned that lesson. Now you're going to learn it too. Representative Hovtek from the Grian Republic stood up. Admiral, surely you don't intend to threaten the entire galaxy. We had nothing to do with what happened to your people. Nothing to do with it? Sarah's voice turned ice cold. You voted to allow it. When the Kethvar presented their evidence that humanity was too dangerous, you agreed. When they asked for permission to take preemptive action, you granted it. When they started killing our colonies, you looked the other way. Dyke? Truth of those words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Every representative remembered the votes from 50 years ago, the careful diplomatic language that had authorized genocide. But more importantly, Sarah continued, you would do it again. If another species rose up that seemed too powerful, too dangerous, too different from your comfortable status quo, you would make the same choice. You would eliminate the threat to preserve your vision of galactic stability. She walked back to the center of the chamber. That will never happen again. The main display activated, showing a holographic map of the galaxy. Human ships appeared as red dots throughout known space. There were thousands of them. Humanity now maintains the largest military force in galactic history. Our ships are more advanced than anything you can build. Our weapons can destroy stars. Our intelligence networks have infiltrated every major civilization. We know your weaknesses, your fears, your plans. The display changed, showing detailed intelligence reports on every species represented in the chamber. military capabilities, government structures, economic vulnerabilities. The humans had been watching everyone. This is the new reality, Sarah said. Humanity is now the galaxy's dominant military power, and we're going to use that power to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. Representative Kelsna from the Thranx Empire raised a tentative hand. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? The Terran Doctrine, a simple set of rules that will govern galactic civilization from now on. The display changed again, showing a document written in dozens of languages. Rule 1. No species may commit genocide against another species for any reason. Period. No exceptions. No justifications. Rule 2. Any species that attempts genocide will be completely eliminated by human military forces. Rule 3. Any species that supports, enables, or harbors those who commit genocide will share their fate. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several representatives stood up to object, but Admiral Chen raised her hand and the room fell silent immediately. Rule 4. These rules are not subject to negotiation, modification, or repeal. They are permanent galactic law, enforced by human military might. Rule 5. Humanity reserves the right to determine what constitutes genocide and what constitutes appropriate response. Chancellor Mordek found his voice. Admiral, you're essentially declaring yourself the galactic police force. Who gave you that authority? Sarah's smile returned. The same authority the Kethvar had when they decided to eliminate humanity. The same authority this council had when you voted to allow it. The authority that comes from having the power to enforce your will. She gestured to the display showing human military assets. The difference is that we're not using that power for conquest or personal gain. We're using it to prevent future genocides. Every species in this galaxy is now under human protection, whether they want it or not. Representative Yaxmal from the Centauran Alliance stood up angrily. This is tyranny. You're imposing your will on the entire galaxy. Yes, Sarah said simply. That's exactly what we're doing. The blunt admission shocked the chamber into silence. 50 years ago, you had a choice. You could have stopped the Kethvar from committing genocide. You could have protected humanity. You could have upheld the principles of civilization you claim to represent. Sarah's voice grew harder. You chose to let us die instead. Now you don't get to make that choice anymore. We're making it for you. The display changed one final time, showing images from the memorial hall on Haven's Rest. Billions of names covering the walls. All the humans who had died. Every being in this galaxy is now safer than they were 6 months ago. Not because you've become more civilized. Not because you've learned to be better. But because humanity is watching and we will never again allow genocide to happen on our watch. Admiral Chen turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. We're establishing permanent human monitoring stations in every major system. Human observers will be assigned to every government, every military force, every organization capable of large-scale violence. This is an occupation, shouted Representative Havtek. No, Sarah said calmly. This is insurance. Insurance against your worst instincts. Insurance against another genocide. Insurance that the galaxy will never again decide that an entire species is too dangerous to live. She walked toward the exit, her delegation following behind her. The Terran Doctrine goes into effect immediately. Human forces are already deploying to enforce it. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. At the entrance to the chamber, Admiral Chen stopped and turned back one final time. You wanted to know if you're safe. Here's your answer. You're safe from genocide. You're safe from the kind of systematic murder that destroyed humanity 50 years ago. You're safe from each other. Her eyes hardened. But you're not safe from us. You will never be safe from us. Because the moment you think you can go back to your old ways, the moment you decide that some species is too different or too dangerous to exist will be there. She paused at the threshold. We are humanity. We are the consequence of your choices. We are the price of your indifference. And we will be watching you for the rest of time. The doors closed behind her, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Later that day, news of the Terran Doctrine spread across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings learned that their universe had changed forever. Some were grateful for the protection, others were terrified of their new guardians. On New Terra, humanity's first new colony world, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the memorial garden, where an eternal flame burned for the 11 billion dead. The names were still there, carved in stone that would last forever. Captain Webb approached her quietly. "Admiral, the deployment is complete. Human forces are in position throughout the galaxy. The Terran doctrine is now in effect." Sarah nodded, still looking at the memorial. "Do you think we've become the very thing we fought against?" Webb asked. Sarah considered the question for a long moment. "The Kethvar destroyed us because they thought we were too dangerous to exist alongside them. Now we control the galaxy because we're too